All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. I'll just put this out there. Um, if y'all got little ones in the room or whatever, there may be an explicit word or two that's said in this one. So um, feel free to fast forward, disregard this video, whatever it is. We've been having people ask for this. I don't know why. It's 11 o'clock Eastern time on Friday, but people want to know what the word I feel about CrowdStrike and the shenanigans that have been going on today. Um, Full disclosure, we are an enterprise partner with CrowdStrike. We use them all day long for our IR retainer. We've talked about it very publicly. Huge supporter of CrowdStrike. What has happened today is definitely a a blemish on the on what happened, blemish on their reputation. It's going to take a little while for them to recover it from the global, but we'll talk about it a little bit, right? So, um, everybody's like, oh, when do you know about this? When do you know about this? We started getting calls around 2:30 Eastern time this morning about impacted devices. I really didn't know what in the world was going on. Um, I seen on one of my other feeds here that runs a couple different news channels and stuff like that. I seen Delta down. I seen this down. I seen. Hold on. Oh, sorry. We're getting pinged by somebody. So I was seeing Delta. I was seeing all these other folks that are down. And I went to bed a little early last night. I didn't watch all of the Trump speech or anything, and the first thing I thought of was, oh fuck, what did Trump say? And or is this like a freaking massive cyber attack that we're getting that we are now suffering? So I'm already thinking about do I make sure I have enough cash in the safe? Do I have this? Do I have that? Um, so, you making sure that my personal stuff is definitely done. We talked about this a while ago. Going to a cashless society. One thing that you probably have witnessed. A lot of businesses are still recovering from this thing. There's gas stations that are only cash now. There's grocery stores that are only cash now because they can't process things. Some of their back end devices are done. So we'll talk about a little bit about this, and I'll explain from a technical, because that's just where I am, about what's kind of going on and why this isn't a quick fix for everybody, right? So let's spin this thing up, right? So if you followed me on LinkedIn for a little while, I took a while before I started really posting anything out about it, of course, because I try as my old age trying to make sure that I don't put out information that I don't fully know yet. So I tried to do that. So, in this one is, where I talked about, please know this only impacts devices with an active issue. We were seeing a lot of our clients like putting this literally in the RMM. There was literally fucking, again, there's going to be explicits here. I'm sorry, it's 11 o'clock. It's been a long day. It's going to drop. So there's literally fucking GitHub repos telling you to put this in your GPO. Let me just tell you, don't do that. We're going to explain why in a minute, but if you have this thing in a GPO, running this PowerShell script becomes some jackwagon on the internet told you this is the way to freaking do it, even though it's the wrong freaking directory that they have in their GitHub, even though I've told them 4 freaking times, you need to fix your script because you're going to break something. Please do proper sanitation when you get stuff off of GitHub. If you literally go down here, let me bring this up. This is modified a little bit from the GitHub repo. I think. I don't remember. But if you just do like the search for this here, the crowd or just the drivers, you remove the CrowdStrike directory and just look for this on like some GitHub repos, you'll see all of them don't have that CrowdStrike directory. Right? So you're going to start deleting random drivers that are not in the proper folder that does not apply. So I know everybody wants to be in the know and all this other stuff, but whatever. You know, please stop running things you see online. There was even some comments, how can we trust you? And it's not going to show it here, right? But I was like, don't verify everything, even I say, right? So, but anyway, don't run this in your RMM. It's not for that because, ladies and gentlemen, if it's checking in with your RMM, if it's able to check in with GPO, that means the network is running. That means the device was able to fully boot up, means you're not affected by the problem. This is a BSOD issue, blue screen of death, for those who don't know. So, my fault there buying what? Yeah, no joke. No jokes, James Randolph. So this is a manual process, unfortunately. It really is. We have seen some nuanced cases where a device was able to boot in, it was able to connect with one of our clients' Screen Connect or something like that, or was able to check in with our CrowdStrike. It was kind of like in a pseudo scenario that we were able to get in there, remove the files, and reboot, and everything came up. But it was super, super rare. Like 1 in 100, 1 in 200 had that type of scenario. So it's not a patch. This is not something that CrowdStrike is able to push out. Again, the device is not able to connect online, therefore, or it's not able to fully boot, therefore it's not able to connect online, and it's not going to be able to get the update. It's not going to be able to get that patch being pulled from the cloud infrastructure. Change control. There was a lot of mention about change control. All right. When we're looking at this, there is change control in CrowdStrike. It is center version number, right? So we always do like a -1 or -2 of the latest version, just so we're not getting the latest and greatest. We're not the quote unquote beta testers. This literally just dropped not too long ago. I'll put it here in the chat. And you can be able to keep an eye on it, things of that nature. But this is literally what they are saying, right? This is a configuration file premiere. It is part of the channel files. So, what is the channel files? This is literally what it's talking about here. So channel file 291, which is the one that is impacted. And this is what I was trying to explain to people. And I wasn't doing very eloquently on private one-on-ones, but this controls how Falcon evaluates named pipe execution, aka PowerShell. PowerShell named pipe commands on a Windows system. Even though named pipes are sorry, my mouse is acting up. This new one's been jacking around. But named pipes are a normal part of Windows operating system. Absolutely. So it is a driver for CrowdStrike. Is part, I think, don't quote me on this, I think is part of their large language model, their AI for behavior analytics. And that's really what CrowdStrike is based off of. It's not based off of signatures like the old legacy AV like you have with Avast and Kaspersky and WebRoot and things of that nature. They are in the Sentinel-1 group. They are in a couple of the other ones, Carbon Black, Red Canary, things of that nature, where it's behavior analytics. So they're looking for TTPs of a threat actor and being able to, do proper analysis and containment based off of those things, right? So essentially this is what happened. Now, what we don't know yet is how in the world did this happen. There's a couple of speculations that are out there. And again, speculations, no verified proof yet. One thing is there was a rumor about an Azure issue that caused this stuff. CrowdStrike does have some Azure infrastructure. Mostly it's in the GitHub repository for a lot of their programming and things of that nature. I've heard rumor that they have some of their code in GitHub. Again, I don't know how true that is, but everything that is being publicized in production is on AWS. Okay, so is the Azure outage or whatever part of the problem? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, honestly. Hey, what's up, Chuck? Good to see you, buddy. Um, I wouldn't make sense to me if everything that they have in production is in AWS, why they would have dev or anything like that in Azure. I don't know. The files that were, or the file that was deployed for channel 291 was, everything was zeroed out. So it was essentially a blank file, right? The null file that was being produced out there. And it's what broke it. So Crowdstrike wasn't able to fully load because it loads at some of the early stages of the boot up process, even before the run once commands or registry commands, all that stuff. So it's one of the early kernel drivers that's loaded to help make sure that they start detecting those key indicators of malware and things of that nature that like to run in the master boot record and things like that nature. So that's why Crowdstrike runs at those early stages of execution of the Windows operating system. So how did this thing happen where this file is being deployed by null or being deployed with a complete null value? The thing that we are speculating is it's a CDN issue where one of their CDN services, whether it was Cloudflare or something else, somehow or another stripped out the contents of the file on deployment, and that's what caused it. And then when you had devices rebooting, it became a problem. The version controls that I was mentioning a minute ago, it does not. It's for the sensor updates and things of that nature. But it's not for this. So the way I can explain this is take your Windows patching. You have your major roll-ups, if you will, and you have your cumulative updates. These sensors that are being pushed out are part of the cumulative update. As it needs to have little minor tweaks and things of that nature, it's pushing out these driver updates to detect these things. The sensor update is the roll up, in if I was to use the Microsoft terminology. So we're stopping the major roll ups through control and change management process, but those itty bitty cumulative updates, we just don't have much. We don't have any control on that, right? And let's just be honest, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have a large SOC in your organization, I can't tell you how many times those things are getting updated every day. It's a lot. If you're doing proper change management on that, dude, you would never get anything done. Forget your firewall getting patched. You got too many resources monitoring change management on this. So there's something people got to understand. It's like, I guess we'll talk about this a little bit, but good point, James. So James Randolph, thank you so much for joining. I kind of wonder why there wasn't a hash check before install, though. I think there was. So, it had a file size. It had a hash, of course. I am assuming, again, details are still pending. This is really why I didn't want to come out, but I'm literally getting messages. Please talk about this. Please talk about this. From because I bring technical stuff to the table. But I'm assuming that when the package was being deployed, it just was stripped empty. And it could be it was an improper upload to the CDN, right? Anybody who's ever dealt with crypto and got scanned by crypto, there's something where you could be able to feed someone to make them think they're getting a ton of cryptocurrency, but the actual transaction is fraudulent. It's not a real transaction. And I think that's kind of, you're sending the envelope, if you will, on the cover of the envelope. It's got your address, everything checks out, it gets delivered, you open it up, it's an empty envelope. That's really the way this thing is playing out right now. You have a complete null file. Everything on the surface looks good. It's got a proper size value. It's got a proper hash value, but it's just completely empty. So there's literally zeros in there. We've taken a look at a couple of the samples, and some people who are very much smarter than I am at reverse malware, they even confirmed it. It's complete zeros. So it, to me, it screams a CDN issue. Something happened with the content delivery network or the upload or something to the CDN, and the file is technically there. It's got volume of complete zeros, and this is what bricked it, right? Am I mad? A lot of people have asked, am I mad at Crowdstrike? A little. This is definitely not something you want to wake up to 2:30 in the morning about. So James asked a follow-up question. So maybe the hash the null before uploading the CDN. Yeah. So if you're doing hash value, okay, let's talk about that. If you're doing hash verification of a file before implementation, you would run that in your dev environment or your mock production environment. You would get all the hashes of it, the MD5, the SHA-256, SHA-1, all these things, and you would do that and code that into your deployment for your application to do that verification. So yeah, you would get that hash before you sent it off to the CDN for deployment. Let me know if I answered your question. So am I mad at CrowdStrike? Again, a little. But the thing to remember when you're dealing with any partner in this situation is, what is their response time? What is the level of communication that's coming from your partner? And what kind of support have you had with your partner, vendor, in remediation? I would have to say, I've had a very little conversation. We're a smaller enterprise customer to CrowdStrike. We're not an MSP or anything like that. We have some volume with CrowdStrike, so we do get, to get that love attention, if you will, from them. But, their technical communication to our portals is happening even still now, right? Most people are up, they're running, but we're still getting updates. And I can't tell you how many times we dealt with other vendors and we just don't have updates. Like literally, we have networks right now that we are still blocking TeamViewer on because it's still weeks. We don't have any information from TeamViewer to make us feel warm and fuzzy. Okay, we're going to start letting TeamViewer being used in our clients' environments. So, do I think CrowdStrike did a good job in communication? Absolutely. You take a look at SolarWinds, you take a look at Kaseya, things of that nature. They hid behind the microphone. They didn't come out and talk. The CEO of CrowdStrike has been on news channels all day long, just talking. putting his face out there. He's not hiding. To me, that speaks volumes. You know, we're all human. We all make mistakes. This is a damn big Carl moment for somebody. You know, but the whole train wreck of Kaspersky be like, oh, if you know you had us, this would have never happened. Well, guess what? In 2002 and 2003, it happened to you, Kaspersky. You were causing blue screens. ESET caused big blue screens. What was it? WebRoot? Was it WebRoot or ESET a couple years ago? They were breaking Hyper-V hosts because you couldn't mount the virtual disks. It was one of them. So it's from a communication standpoint, I think he did good, right? So this is definitely something to take everybody to, once the dust settles, you know, which it kind of is. From everything I've seen, you know, airplanes are back up in the air. They're flying again. Airports are flowing. I haven't heard of any real hospitals that are, you know, heavily impacted by this right now. I think everybody, for the most part, is definitely up and running again, or limping along to get things back to full production. So, you know, over the weekend, whether you're impacted by this or not, you know, this is definitely learning lessons to take, right? You know, again, not trying to plug up my other videos, but, you know, definitely check out the cashless app video that I posted on YouTube about 4 or 6 months ago. You know, if you're in an area where your gas stations are not able to come back up because it requires somebody to come on site to actually run a command, literally this here. And I'll post this. If you're impacted by this and if for some reason you have not seen this yet and this is new to you, I'm sorry. But this is literally, you know, a PowerShell that you'll throw into ICS or, you know, whatever, copy and paste it into PowerShell and execute it. And this will take care of the file that's in question on an impacted system, please. If you have CrowdStrike and you execute this, you will isolate yourself if our controls are in place, because CrowdStrike will, if tamper prevention is turned on, you're going to isolate yourself. Plain and simple. So that's kind of why I've been fussing at people. Stop putting this in your RMM and blanket running it, please. Right? So definitely, you know, just do your due diligence. Well, look at your internal controls. You know, one thing, lesson learned on our side, is client communications. So, you know, trying to keep all of our clients properly communicated in this incident to make sure they knew what we knew in as close to a real time is something that we learned in this incident. You know, granted, you know, phones were blowing up, you know, emails, all that, and I think we were responding in adequate time. So, and we were just doing a bunch of emails, but, you know, maybe looking at getting that moved into our Salesforce, or, you know, using a MailChimp or something like that, just to help push out communication in case of anything like this ever happen again. You know, that's one of my lesson learns on this one. You know, I was going to check the chat here, see if there's any, if you're here Looks like 13 people between LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Can't believe y'all are awake and jaw jacking with me here a little bit. Yeah, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of questions. I don't think I haven't answered already. So yeah, so Richard, I think it was just a snafu. Again, we've got more information coming out. So, we got the remediations that I posted already. They are going through a root cause analysis. And based off the communications that we've seen from them so far, I think we will get that root cause analysis in short order. So, bear with me 1 second. I'm getting pinged on something. Okay. But, so we will find out what exactly caused this whole thing. Again, what I've already stated what my speculations are. But, based off the communication efforts that they've been pushing out so far, I think we'll get it. Hopefully that answers your question. What's up, Christopher Young? Hope you're doing well, bud. Jim Lund, yeah, there was just a whole bunch of people on my private signals and private groups that were asking me to talk about it. So I'm like, I think it's been talked to death, but okay. Apparently there's enough people who want to hear what I have to say about it. So yeah, it's been a long day. Well, it'll be a long weekend, right? But everybody, for the most part, is keeping a cool head. You know, just because you have one blemished issue does not mean you need to start changing vendors. You're going to cause more disruption from an EDR change than doing this. I know it's, depending on your company setup, sending out field technicians. I know one of our clients that's pretty massive has a ton of remote locations. Their field engineers are going to be pretty busy over the weekend trying to get these impacted devices up and running. I feel for them. We'll be there to support them naturally. I think they got everything, pretty much sorted out. And, they kind of have their stuff, but, so, I know a lot of people love Threat Locker. This could have very well been a Threat Locker issue. This could have very well been a Sentinel-1 issue. From what I know so far, this is just something that unfortunately happened. I don't think anybody went full Carl mode and just, blindly pushed out something. I do think there was a technical blip somewhere in the CDN. Everything in my gut is telling me to point to CDN, and that's where the problem is. Next couple of days into the week or whatever, we'll find out if I was right or wrong. I'm interested to see. Not for our gloating purposes, but just to kind of see, what is my mind tracking right? Do I understand software deployment correctly? It's really what I'm worried about, or curious about anyway. Ron Clark, sounds like Southwest Airlines was not affected because they ran Windows 3.1. Yeah, maybe. Jim Lund, how does a company tabletop exercise a matter like this in the future? That's a good question, right? The best way I could describe a tabletop scenario for this, I would say complete network outage. Granted, what we've seen in this situation, and I don't know if it's because of the way we have some of our stuff set up in CrowdStrike, where things are in a phased deployment. Most of it is sensor, and that is the quote unquote roll up versus the cumulative updates, kind of like I said in the beginning of the video. I don't know if that had any play in it. I don't think so. I would like to think that because we have phased rollouts going out, that um, the channel updates are the same way, that they kind of mimic that a little bit, even though we don't have change management in it. That's kind of what I'm hoping, because across all of our clients, it wasn't a complete 100% blackout. It wasn't a complete 100% failure, right? It was, you know, 10 here, 30 there, 50 here, 7 here. It was all over the place, right? So, um, and it could have just been because the patching team was working through and getting patching work done, because it is Friday and they try to get the last of the patches of the week out Friday morning. So that's some of the stuff that we're gonna have to do post mortem, is to find out, was patching being pushed on the impacted devices that went down. So, but anyway, it's not like we could have really done anything about that either. But anyway, I guess the tabletop would be, what would you guys look at for a complete network outage? How would you operate? And this is something good for your backups too, right? So what was this predict? Probably. So how long can your business operate in this fashion? Some businesses are hybrid. They still have paper. They scan their records in of whatever, accounting or payroll or whatever, their manufacturing orders, so that they keep a digital version of it and things of that nature. So, like, how long can your business run in a complete down situation? Right? That's the scenario you gotta do. And to get to that, you gotta find out literally what is your operating cost per hour. Do it per day, then break it down to the hour, and then break it down to the minute. So you know what it costs to run the business every hour of every day. And a good business owner knows that. I'm not a good business owner. um, but we're also very, very small, so it's not hard for me to figure that out in about 2 minutes. But you just got to figure out at what point you need to be able to restore from backups, things of that nature, and that's part of the whole tabletop. So, have you calculated that hourly cost? Have you calculated those peak times versus non-peak times? Like from 8 to 5, it costs us $2,000 a minute to run, or $10,000, whatever that number is. And then, but the after hours, the graveyard shift is only $500. I'm just throwing out quick, easy numbers, right? So you should know, a large business or larger businesses should know that, and that will help you with a lot of decisions. So let me know, Jim, if that answers your question. I know I'm a little ADHD, a little bit tired version of ADHD. Ron Clark was asking, was this predicted on The Simpsons? Dude, so many things are predicted on Simpsons. Jesse Johnson, will we see a return to cash, invest in gold and silver? Jesse, I've always been a massive component of always keeping some cash on hand. And that just goes back to where I live in South Carolina. We are prone to hurricanes. You should always keep abundance of water and abundance of gas for your generators, you know, cash on hand, you know, all these things. If a hurricane comes through and you're staying in town because it's a lower grade, there's going to be a there's going to be deprecation of services that you're not going to be able to have, right? So I do think, you know, it's foolish to not accept cash. I don't know why banks are doing that. It really drives me nuts, but it is what it is. What are some briefing points for non-cybersecurity people? That is a good question. I guess I guess what I would say, Jim, is kind of just go to the link that I posted. If I didn't post it already, let me grab that real quick. I think I would talk about whether you have trust or non-trust in a vendor. I think that would be my briefing points. You know, take scenarios of other companies. Again, I pointed to TeamViewer earlier. You could go back and look in history about SolarWinds, Kaseya, you know, Microsoft. You know, look at some historical data of communication for outages, and look how did CrowdStrike pair to that. Even if you're not with CrowdStrike, but then you take that to, you know, your vendors. You know, I know a lot of companies that we manage use SAP, things of that nature for their accounting packages. Some of them are cloud, things of that nature. And, excuse me, how would those folks respond? You know, of course, you're always going to get the high-end sales pitch. It's like, oh, yes, we have, you know, 4 nines and blah, 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 right? But you never, this really goes to the character of an organization to me. This is the way I view it. This goes to the character of the organization. When you have, or when you're able to have a global impact, you're not just sitting behind a blog post on your website. Your CEO in under 24 hours is on all the major news networks talking about the situation, trying to reassure people, put the word out. You know, vendor trust, and, you know, examining your vendors. And unfortunately, it's going to be hard to do that from this scenario. So, you know, you just have to see what that vendor is providing you. Examine, you know, again, vendor trust and examination to see, you know, what are they providing you? Is there a way to augment their whatever they're producing for you? So hopefully that helps. I will think about this a little bit more, Jim, and once I get a little bit more than an hour and a half of sleep from just being up since 2:30 this morning, I will try to have a more calculated answer for you. Thank you for answering, Eric. I'm a prepper. Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, we all have to be. I mean, I'm not saying go down and build a freaking bunker. Um, Even though, Jesse, I think you might be one of those people that would build a bunker. So, but yeah, I mean, I've always been, since I was 10, for the most part, in either hurricane, tornado, or tsunami areas. So you're always having a little bit of awareness and making sure you're able to provide yourself and your family for at least a week, right? So that's a deep answer. Thank you. You're absolutely welcome, Jim. Yeah, exactly. Vendor trust and examination is critical for any company. Exactly. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, I will bow out of here. This actually went a lot longer than I wanted. Not that I wanted to, but a lot longer than I thought it would. We are getting close to midnight here, here on the East Coast. So I will bow out. I'm going to go through my clients one more time, make sure that they're looking good, they're feeling good, they're being protected. You know, and if you're like us, if you're in that middle space, you're providing consulting services. You know, we're doing a lot of IR retainer, so we use CrowdStrike in that to make sure that our clients are, properly protected. Are you communicating, you know, to your clients and making sure that they are protected and or not protected, but they understand that you're making yourself available to them, you know? And that's really what I posted earlier or mentioned earlier about my communication efforts going out. You know, I think we did a good job, but I would like to see it more streamlined. So, or at least from our side. So that's one of my major action items that I'm taking away from it. So, and if y'all are here crazy enough to actually tune into this thing, let's throw you guys some sea shanty, and y'all take care of yourselves.
The kid whose passwords laid across all sites, they were the same, a criminal, then found their fame by taking that data to go.
Soon may a criminal come to steal your pictures and data and run. One day when the crime is done, they'll steal your account and go.